Thanks everybody for coming. I'm glad you guys got your bentos, and thanks Dennis from First American Title for helping us sponsor this tonight. Full group tonight. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about building wealth and transferring wealth in real estate. Little bit of background. We've been doing this for a while, 17 years in real estate. We've helped over, gosh, we're going on 13, almost 1,400 families that we've served, closing transactions. So a lot of families. We started this thing called KWREP Real Estate Planner. And this is a national training program that we started. We have several hundred members in our community now. KWREP is the largest real estate company the world's ever seen. We have 180,000 realtors in Keller Williams. And I have a community that we attract people all over the country. So I'm coaching agents in every state in many of these communities here, really talking about how do we help build wealth and transfer wealth. So let's get going. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about some tips on building a real estate plan, right? Many of us think of real estate, but we don't really think of it as having a plan around it. We have a financial planner, right? We have a CPA that protects you with your taxes. You have an attorney, right? But who's helping you plan your real estate? Well, that's what we do. And today you're going to find out the tools and tips that we use to help you create a plan. And then we're going to look at the current market today. What does it look like? What do we think is going to happen in the future? We're going to talk about capital gains and how to defer capital gains taxes. The number one enemy for creating generational wealth is taxes. And we're going to teach you how to minimize or eliminate capital gains taxes. We're going to talk about the mechanics of a 1031 exchange. What are the requirements in executing a 1031 exchange? Know that there is no grace. The IRS gives you no grace on a 1031 exchange. If you don't fulfill the obligations of what the IRS requires you to do, you're going to pay capital gains tax. And you're going to see it's pretty painful. We're going to also talk about this thing called a DST, Delaware Statutory Trust. And it became a great safety net for a 1031 exchange. We're also going to talk about eliminating family disputes. How many of you have heard of a family who fought over real estate after mom and dad died? Anybody? Yeah, we all have heard that. Why does that happen? We have good kids, but we're going to talk about why that happens down the road. And then transferring wealth and creating a legacy with that real estate. Most of us, as we get older, we start thinking of beyond ourselves. We start thinking about the next generation and the generations to come, right? And how do we prepare? How do we plan? How do we educate them so that they can learn to build wealth, right? So this is our market data. This is as of October. Keep in mind, this is last year over this year. Prices went up from last year to this year in general, okay? Up 5%. But look at the closed sales. It went down 42%. Almost half of the sales are gone compared to last year. You're going to see a lot of realtors out of business. You're going to see a lot of loan officers out of business. You're going to see a bunch of escrow officers out of business. Why? Because the total transaction counts almost cut in half. This is very common all over the country. All over the country, we're seeing this. Okay. What's also happening in single-family homes, days on the market's up significantly. What that means also is inventory is rising. What happens when that rises? Well, typically, you're going to see a tipping of the pricing, right? Know that these prices that the board presents to you, these are closed sales. What that means is that's old data. Old data because that's 45 to 60 days old because they came to an agreement that long ago. Okay. You're going to start seeing these numbers dipping in the future. Condos, prices are up 4%, sales are down, as well as the days on the market's up, and inventory is up significantly. This is what's happening. This is year over year, okay? Take a look at this now. This is what's happening today. The blue line is single family homes. This takes us all the way back to 1987 to now. What happened in the 90s? Well, the Japanese came in and started bidding properties up. Look at that increase in values from 175,000 to 375,000 in a matter of 4 years. What happened after the peak? We took a bit of a slide, right? And then we leveled off, and then we had another run, right? From 2000 to 2007, there was a large increase in values. What happened after the peak? We took a bit of a slide again. Fortunately, in Hawaii, this dip here is very low. That's 7% drop in values. Okay, 7%, that's not much. States like California, Nevada, Florida, Arizona, they saw 40, 50, even 60% reduction in values during that last downturn. They're going to have it again because the inventory in Arizona now went up 450% in 2 months. Once the interest rates started rising, the inventory just went through the roof. It went from 5,000 to, I think, almost 20,000 properties available in just a very short time period. So because we're in touch with every market around the country now, I'm hearing what's happening before it gets across the pond to us. Okay? We're typically a little delayed from what happens on the mainland, but we're very in touch with it. Well, what happened from 2010 to now? This is the largest expansion of wealth we've ever seen in America in history in Hawaii. See, these cycles are typically 7 to 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on year 12 right now. What do you think happens after the peak? Well, we already see it. We already see it. It's starting to dip. So we're telling sellers, based on this data, time's not your friend. Because if you're thinking of selling, this thing is going to start dipping a little. Just like every cycle, right? We follow a cycle. It's going to repeat itself, right? And that's what's going to happen. Not much, but it will. Right? In some areas, it'll drop more than others, right? In some areas, the days on the market's going to go through the roof because people aren't adjusting their prices fast enough, right? And that's what's going to happen, right? So again, we're telling sellers sooner is probably better than later based on what you're trying to accomplish. So there's two types of properties. There's a primary residence and an investment property. There's only really two types of properties you can have. So the first one is a primary residence. That's something you live in, something you've lived in 2 out of the last 5 years. It could be any of those 5 years. It could be the first 2 or the last 2. It doesn't matter. But you have to reside in it with 2 out of the last 5 years. The government gives you $250,000 tax-free capital gain out with 0 tax. There is no asset that you currently own today that you can sell and not have any capital gains tax. Real estate's your last one. Husband and wife, you can take $500,000 out of that asset and pay 0 capital gain dollars. 0. Okay. Now, if you don't live in it 2 out of the last 5 years, it's defined as an investment property. And that's subject to state and federal capital gains taxes. So how do we make decisions about what to do? You know, many of us are thinking, should I rent it? Should I sell it? Should I move into it? And I'm going to tell you, there's only 2 types of decisions you're going to make. One decision is an emotional decision, something that tugs on your heart, something that matters to you inside. And the other is a financial decision. So there's only 2 types of decisions. Well, going back though to this, there's only 2 types of properties. If you're thinking of an investment property, what kind of decision should you be making? An emotional decision or financial decision? Financial decision. And that's where some people get stuck because they're still trying to make an emotional decision on an asset. They should be looking at it through a financial lens, right? And that's what really matters, is how you're approaching your real estate, how you're going to feel about planning that real estate for you, your family, the income that it provides, the lifestyle and enjoyment it provides. These are all your decisions that we help our clients self-discover. When we meet our clients, we do this thing called a current portfolio analysis. And what we do is we look at their home, their investment properties, and their future. So when it talks about their home, we ask a lot of questions about what are your goals about that home, right? Does it fit those current needs today? Is it going to fit your future needs, right? We have a lot of older clients that we serve, and you know, my thought is to share with them that maybe we ought to consider what life's going to look like 5 years or 10 years down the road, right? Versus look at what it was 5 years behind us. Our lens really needs to be forward thinking, right? How do you plan while you're looking into the future? What is that going to look like? What are your future needs? And what are your needs in the next phase of life? And then what should I do with that house, the one that you're living in? Should I let my kids live there? Should I rent it? Should I sell it? What should I do with that asset? And so we go through these whole series of questions with our clients, and we help you self-discover based on what matters to you, right? Because these plans are customized to you, has nothing to do with us. What we do though is we ask you questions so you're going to self-discover what you really want and how to approach it and how to create a plan around it. And then we're going to look at investment properties. We'll do this thing called an asset performance test on all of your investment properties. The reason for that is it helps you define how it's economically returning money to you, right? And we're going to talk about the asset performance test a little later. Then we're going to talk about generational wealth building, how to create a legacy. What does that look like to you? You know, many of our clients, I ask them, what caused you to create massive wealth in real estate? And almost all of them say the same thing. It's for my kids. And I say to them, well, if you have a choice, you could keep it in your trust until you die and then let your kids figure that out. How's that going to work out? I ask all of our older adults, are all your kids alike? Do they think alike? Do they act alike? Do they have the same thought process? Are they in the same economic status? And if the answer is no to any of those questions, they're not going to agree to things about that property when you're gone. And that's why we have fights so much. We have 4 clients now, 4 clients that are now speaking to each other through attorneys. 2 of them have restraining orders on one of the brothers. It happens in reality. And it happens because we don't have a plan. And our goal is to help people self-discover what the best plan is for them, help you guide through that, and then shepherd you down the path. Because our goal is to transfer wealth, right? At some point, we're going to plan on transferring wealth, right? How do we do that without taxes? And what does that look like? And towards the end of today, we're going to explain in detail how that works. Then we look at current and future goals, right? What are your current needs today regarding your home, the space that you have, the lifestyle it creates, the environment that it's in, and then what about your investment properties? You know, do you need the cash from it or not? Would you like more cash from it or not? Right? Is it a problem? Is it become a burden or not? Right? Is it too much work to maintain or not? Right? So all these things we sit down and we go through current and future goals, and then at the end of it, who gets what? Right? And it was a realtor. I taught a class and he said to me, Dan, I got it figured out. I don't have the problem that you keep talking about. I said, oh, tell me about that. He said, oh, I got 3 kids and I got 3 properties. I said, that sounds like a great plan. I only got a question for you. Who gets the first pick? Or should I say, who do you love the most? And how's everybody else going to feel about that? Because at the end of the day, one of the questions I ask all older adults is, at the end of the day, when you're gone, do you want your kids to love each other? And most people say yes. Well, if that's the case, you may be creating a situation where that may not happen. Because if once you're gone, you're the judge, right? You kept the peace in the family, right? All the people that went down, right? Because you were there. Then once you're gone, what happens? Well, all these emotions rise to the surface. Well, you're your mom's favorite. Well, you're dad's favorite. Remember the time you did that to me? And now there's real money on the table. There's real money on the table. Then people show up differently. And that's why we have what we have. And we see this every single week in families, and it's horrible to see. And that's why we're on a mission to help you create a plan so that never happens to you. It should never happen to you, right? Because family means something to most of us, right? It matters. And we want to keep them together for future time. And then what's your ideal timing on what to do with properties? Renting it, selling it, moving out, whatever you're doing. And where do you start? How do you start this process, right? And so when we sit down and we talk to people about it, this is a funny picture, right? Because people say, oh, don't worry, I'm going to leave it to my kids. You can't divide real estate. That's why you have a problem. Because if people think you can divide real estate, you can't. We have one of my good friends. His family, his grandparents bought a house in Waikiki. It was an apartment building, 2-story walk-up. Okay. Grandpa passed away, went to my friend's my age, he's my classmate. He went to his parents. There's 9 of them. There's only 2 left. There's 32 decision makers on that property. What do you think is going to happen? It's never going to get sold. The biggest thing is, what if the roof leaks and they got to put $50,000 into the roof? Who's going to pay for that? That's how you have fights. Because the guy with the most money is going to do it, and everybody that doesn't have money, that isn't going to cough it up, and the guy that paid the money is going to sue his family. And that's messed up. It happens like this because people think that it's okay. They think that you can divide real estate. I'm telling you, I've seen it time and time again. You cannot divide real estate. You have to have a plan to divide it. So we do this current market analysis for folks, for properties that people own, either the primary residence or investment property. And one of the things about doing that is, again, what you see in the newspaper is old information. It's 60 days old or more, right? 60 days old or more. Why is that important? Because how quickly has the interest rate risen? This is what it looked like. This is this year alone, ladies and gentlemen. This is the interest rate and what happened this year. In the beginning of the year, you could get 3.25. Now, just this week, it took a little bit of a dip. It's under 7, right? What are we at now, guys? 6.5? So just this week alone, we had a slight correction, but that's still going to go up, right? We're expecting interest rates to continue rising for the next couple quarters. Why? Because that's the only tool that the government has on inflation. They have to crush the values of real estate because that's where most of the money is. That's where inflation starts, at the highest ticket, right? That's where it starts. So how do you stop that? Making the cost of money so high that people stop buying. And that's what's happening. And we were at 9.25%. We went down to 8.6, I think, now of inflation, rate of inflation. They want us down to 2%. How long is that going to take to get us down from 8 to 2%? It'll take us 12 to 24 months. This thing that we're in, we've been in a recession for 2 quarters already, and nobody's talking about it. It's real. And we're not going to get out of this for a while. It's going to take us a little bit for a while, and it's going to stay there for a while because historically, it's going to take 2 to 4, 2 to 5 years to get out of this thing, to get to where it is today. It's just reality. Don't shoot the messenger, please. I travel the country and I talk to people all over the country and consultants and economists. And this is data that we cannot dispute. It's reality. You saw what happened in Twitter. You saw what happened with Meta. Left, what, 11,000 people off one day. Guess what? That's the top of the food chain. These are the highest paid people in our country. Technical engineers, computer engineers. 11,000 of them gone one day. Where were they? In the Bay Area and in Austin, Texas. Both cities that I was in the last 3 months. What happened to values? Started shooting down. It's going to continue happening. Right? And just know that that's just reality. It is where we are. Fortunately, in Hawaii, though, we're a little bit more protected because we have limited inventory, right? So if you have a good property without very money issues, you'll get multiple offers. We still get them, right? If you have any issues with a property, those are going to be the hardest ones to sell. You have to price it ahead of the market, right? You have to price it ahead of the market. Otherwise, you're going to be chasing the market down. What is the impact of interest rates? Well, this is an interesting chart that most people don't understand. Let's say it's 6% and it goes up to 7%. A 1% rise of interest rate, you lose 10% of buying power. If you want to keep the payment the same, you no longer can buy $1 million property. You're buying a $900,000. That's almost 10% less. A 1% rise of interest rate, you lose a 10% of buying power. That's significant. And this is why you're going to see a downward pressure, right? People that put in an offer, 30 days later, the rate changes and you lock in and now they can't qualify. We're seeing that happen now. We're seeing it happen. Right? There's a thing called, what is it called? Lock and load? What is it called? Lock and load? Yeah. So for our buyers, we do a lock and load so we can lock in the rate now for, what does it go, 90 days? Lock and shop? Yeah, lock and shop. For like 90 days, you can lock in the loan at a rate at no additional cost. So there are things you can do on the buy side, and there's a number of different things that we've been helping our buyers do to combat that. But this is reality. This is math. This is something that people cannot dispute, right? And that's why it has a major impact. And most people don't understand this, right? How many of you have seen a chart like this, right? Many realtors don't understand this. This is important to understand if you want to learn how to build wealth in real estate. The other thing we do for our clients is give you an equity analysis. It's really a net sheet. At the end of the day, if anybody says to us, I'm thinking of selling this property, we can tell you what your net proceeds are going to be. At the end of the day, we're going to give you a number. This is what you're going to walk away with. Now, keep in mind, you also have to be mindful of your capital gains taxes should you have some. Okay. The other is tax liability, right? Cost basis and capital gains taxes are really important. Most realtors don't talk about that because they don't really care because they're dealing with the transaction. A real estate planner always talks about it. Why? Because it matters. Your net money is really not your net money. The net proceeds, that's not always it. Because if you've got capital gain, you know you can't spend all that money because you're going to be paying capital gains tax on it. Right? So what is a cost basis? Something really important to understand. And many folks haven't figured this one out yet. The cost basis is really the value of the property when you got the property. Okay, so there's two types of it. There's a step up in cost basis, which is where the value is at date of death, right? And then there's a carryover cost basis, which is transferred from the date of transfer from the date of the initial person's purchase. Okay, that's a problem. Let me explain a little bit more. Hopefully this helps. So the step on the cost basis is what you want, right? Let's say mom bought it at $500,000 and it's worth $1 million today. Mom had it, mom passes away. Upon her death, it's in her trust. Make sure it's in her trust, please. Then it automatically goes to the next of kin or the beneficiary, right? That person gets a step up in cost basis. I mean, the cost basis that next person takes is on the value at the date of death, not when she purchased it. So at that point, if it's passed on when mom passes away, there's zero capital gains tax, zero. And some people say to me, well, I really want my kid to be on title. If you put your child on title, you're gonna have this. You're gonna have a carryover cost basis. Let's say mom bought it at 500, but she transfers it or puts the son on title while she's alive. The child now has it at the value that mom bought it at. So when the child sells it, they're responsible to pay all the gain. My point is, if you like your kids, don't transfer it to them, put their name in the trust. If you don't like your kids, don't transfer it to them because they can kick you out of the house. True story, no, true story. I went to help a lady in Waipahu. She wanted to go to Ilimet Nahanu. She was excited. Her husband was really frail. She took care of him for decades. And she just said, I'm just exhausted. I can't take care of him anymore. He needs to go to this retirement community. So she calls me up. She said, Dad, I'm ready to go. Can you help me move? Because we have the complete solution to help her get into the retirement community. So I get to her house and I look at the tax record. I go, your name's not on this title. Who are these people? And she goes, oh, this is my son, my daughter, and my son-in-law. I go, well, you don't have authority to sell the property because you don't own it anymore. What happened? And she goes, oh, that's right. Last year I went downtown and signed some papers. There was an attorney that told mom to transfer it to the kids so that she can go on Medicaid. But they didn't really understand what mom wanted, did they? They basically trapped mom in her house. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I was in tears leaving that place because I could not help her. And she's trapped in her house with a person that she'd married for 70 years and has to take care of him. And she thought she would have a little bit of a life. And the kids said, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to stay in the house. That was horrible. So please, before you transfer it, keep in mind, that's not a good thing. Right? That's not a good thing. For if you like your kids and if you don't like your kids. Okay, so how do you determine capital gains tax? We'll do that for you when we meet. Basically, we take your net selling price and you subtract your adjusted cost basis. Keep in mind, the federal government will charge you up to 20% capital gains tax and of the gain. And if your adjusted gross income is greater than $400,000, you add another 3.8%. That's just the federal side. On the state side, state of Hawaii is 11%. Right? There are about 8 states that have 0 state capital gains taxes. State of Hawaii is number 2 in ranking. This is what we look like. And that's why people change their residence, because of capital gains tax. Yeah. California is at 13.3%, Hawaii is at 11%, but all of these states have 0 state capital gains tax. Because they get their money other ways. Don't think it's easier that way. Right? They get their money other ways. Property taxes are really high in a lot of these states. Okay. So, but just to understand that that's how the math works. The asset performance test, we talked about that. It's just a way to help you make a good financial decision on your investment properties, right? Because remember, you're supposed to see your investment property as an asset, like a stock or bond or any other instrument, right? Which means you should measure that asset. We should measure it compared to your rate of return. Right? How much money is your money making for you? See, what we do is when we teach people how to build wealth and transfer wealth, building wealth says that your money is working for you, not you working for your money. Now, if you can have your money work for you to create enough income to match your active income, what you do and get for your job, once you get your passive income to equal your active income, you no longer have to work. That's where your money works for you. And that's what we teach young people to do. Because you have to start, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. Okay. It is absolutely today. So we'll run an asset performance test. We'll take a look at your cap rate analysis and a cash on cash analysis, and basically help you understand what is your money doing for you. See, most people think of real estate and they see the house and the structure and the gutters and all that. We don't see that. In investment property, we're looking at how it's going to generate income, right? What is that doing for you, right? For your family. Renovation and repair analysis, we also do that for our clients. Again, we've been doing this a long time. We've helped tons of people renovate their homes and sell it. Right now, we probably have 4 or 6 projects at any one time that we're fixing up and selling, right? So we are working really closely with a contractor that we've had about an 8-year run with. This guy has done it on time and on budget 100% of the time. And I've never heard of that before. I never heard of that before. And so our clients have access to him, right? Those who agree to use us have access to him. Because what we want to do is figure out if you renovate the home, are you going to get your return on your money, right? So we just did one the other day. We went to New Valley, a house that's vacant, original home. For $200,000, we can make that thing look brand new, right? But when we looked at that, and we looked at if you could sell it without doing anything at 1.2, and you put 200,000 on it, but you sell it at 1.5, that's not much of a margin. Is it really worth it, right? And so we'll make sure that you don't spend money where you shouldn't spend money, right? Because our goal is to get, for every dollar you spend, you get $1 or $2 back. You don't want to be breaking even on this. There's too much effort and too much time to be involved into it. You want to make money on your investment property. If not, just sell it as is, right? Because time is more important, right? Because we know what's going to happen in pricing. Right? So if you delay that sale from today to 6 months from now, know that 6 months from now, you're not going to get the same price you will today. It's just not going to happen. Right? And that's why we did this exercise. We showed them the numbers and they go, yeah, you're right. Let's just sell it as is. Fine, we can do that for you. So what we'll do is we'll do the scope of work. We make a list of everything that gets done. Then we get an estimate on all the repair work in detail. And then we do an after repair value, an ARV. We said, if we did all this work, here's what we think we could sell it for. And here's what you sell it for without doing any work. Then you're going to be able to make a good decision on your return on your investment. Okay? And because we do this every week, we're very in tune with the numbers and the math and what's going to work. Right? Here's some pictures. This is one of our properties. See that kitchen? It was enclosed. That's actually a kitchen. That's a kitchen. You can't see inside of it. We took all the walls down. We opened it up. It was all redwood original. It looks brand new. Quartz countertops, white shaker cabinets, beautiful lighting and fixtures. This is the bathroom. Again, the bathroom was closed up, right? There was a sink on the outside, a wall, and a door, and then a seat, toilet. Now look at it. Which one's more valuable? Right? And we do these projects in probably about, I think this last one we did in 7 weeks. We got in and out of home. We spent $200,000. Some of you actually are, some of our clients are getting invited to a party for that. Okay, this chart's really important for people who are thinking of buying because we really don't understand this theory called compounding. The principle of compounding is impactful. And here's an example. 2 people, somebody renting and somebody buying. They're paying the same amount of money every month, $22.71, right? Paying the same amount of money. The guy on this side who's buying, he got gifted $100,000 from his parents. But he's paying the same amount of money should he be renting. In 30 years, how much equity does that person have? 0. Keep in mind, his rent's rising. This guy, his mortgage is fixed. What does he owe in 30 years? $1.62 million. This is what happens over time. Time matters. Because every year that the theory of compounding is that 4% a year, that's rising on a bigger number, right? And so look at the math. Look where the gain is. It's in the later years. Warren Buffett made more of his money over the age of 50. One of the richest men in the world made most of his money over the age of 50 because of this, compounding. The number gets bigger, and you add a multiple to that number gets bigger. And people don't understand this because they think it's a straight line. It's not a straight line. It's a hockey stick. It goes like this, right? And that's what happens when math shows up, when you understand it, that this chart is what we showed first-time buyers, younger people that don't get it. Which side do you want to be on? Again, you're spending the same amount of money. There's no difference, except somebody's investing in themselves. The guy who's renting is paying somebody else's mortgage off, making somebody else rich. Yeah. That's how we show this chart. Generational wealth building, our goal is to teach the next generation how to build wealth, right? So we first analyze their portfolio and make sure we understand what you own, what the value is, what you can do with it, and then create a plan with the end in mind. Like, what do you want at the end? Because it's really based on what the family wants. What are your goals, your family goals? Like, who needs help, and who do we need to help? And how can we help them? Right? Because your real estate can actually be used for good. Right? People say money is the root of all evil. I disagree. Money is good for the good it does. What good do you want to do with it? That's what we should be focusing on. How do you bless anybody that you want to bless with your property? Right? And then what are the next steps, and who, what, and when can I help them to do that through generational wealth building? So let's switch gears. We're going to talk about 1031 exchanges, because 1031 exchanges is probably the least understood and utilized tool in real estate today. And I teach this around the country, and very few realtors understand how to do this at a really high level. We were been blessed because we started doing this 16 years ago. We started teaching 1031 exchange classes that long ago. And we've mastered it because we knew that that's something that everyone needs to learn because, again, taxes is the enemy of growing wealth, right? So make sure you see your CPA though. So a 1031 exchange allows you to defer your capital gains tax as long as you buy an investment property of like kind, right? What is like kind? It can be anything. Anything real estate that's fee simple in the United States. I could sell a theater and buy a shopping center. I can sell a condo and buy vacant land. It does not need to be occupied, and you do not have to have rental income. The IRS sees that property that you do not live in as you're holding it for a future appreciation. That's an investment. You just can't live in it. Okay? You just can't live in it. So it doesn't matter what of these you want to do or what you have. If you have vacant land, that's the best property to liquidate because your vacant lot typically doesn't have income, right? We had a guy that had a house in Palolo. It was his mom's house. It got so bad he had to tear it down, right? He tore it down. Now there's a vacant lot. Now the neighbors complain because the weeds get high. So now he's got to pay a yard guy to come and clean it. This is like 12 years long. He did this until he came to one of our seminars and he realized, I didn't know you could do this. We sold the property with vacant lot. We bought him another condo. He netted $2,200 a month forever. When he was paying like, I don't know, not much, maybe like $1,000 a year or a couple thousand a year. The bottom line, he's negative to a lot of money every month. So 1031 exchanges, it's really important. Investing about this is you can do it in any state in America. Any state. We have people that have got kids in Oregon. They sold a Pololo Kaimaki house and they bought 2 homes in Seattle. Why? Because the kids are there, right? They need a place to live. So you can use these things to create a legacy for your family. Right? The main thing is you don't live there, right? So what are the guidelines? Well, you have to designate up to 3 replacement properties within 45 days of the closing of your relinquished property, the property you're selling. And you must close on the replacement property within 180 days. Those are the 2 main rules you have to understand. There is no grace. It doesn't matter if the date ends on a Sunday or King Kamehameha Day. They don't care. You must close prior to that, right? This chart is how we bulletproof your 1031 exchange. So while we're selling a property, we're also looking for the replacement property at the same time. So you're selling a property, you're going to aggressively market it, you're getting an acceptance in the one you're selling, it closes in 45 days. From this closing, you have 45 days to find your replacement property. What most people think is, if there's only 45 days to find my replacement property, I don't want to do a 1031 exchange. It's not enough time for me. But that's thinking that you're going to start the process here. We start the process here. We're going to start looking for your replacement property prior to you even going on the market. So by the time you go on the market, we know what you're going to buy. When you get an acceptance of the one that you're selling, we're writing an offer for the replacement property. We're going to write it here. We're not going to write it out here. That's why we've never failed. Over 200 some odd 1031 exchanges, we've never failed, ever, right? Because we have a system to it. The first thing we're going to ask you, though, if you're considering doing a 1031 exchange, is I want you to talk to your CPA and I want you to tell me a number. The number that says, if you fail, what's your tax burden? I need you to understand that. Why? Because that's the pain button that you're going to want to avoid. And that's a lot of money usually. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've seen $1 million of tax in a property if you fail. Failure is not an option in my book. So we work really closely with our clients to make sure that failure never shows up. Right? And it's worked 100% of the time. The Delaware Statutory Trust is a safety net for a 1031 exchange. You can identify a DST is like a real estate investment trust, a REIT, except it's acknowledged by the IRS for a 1031 exchange, right? We own a DST. We bought one about a year or so ago, back when COVID was here. We sold a condo because I didn't want to worry about a tenant not paying, and I just got tired of having the washer breaking and all this and that, and I'm busy. So we sold it. We wrote it into a Delaware statutory trust. The benefit to us is I don't ever have to worry about the tenant, number one. Number two is I was only getting about 2.1% return on my money. I now get 4.49% on my money. I doubled my money without any risk, without any burden. It just shows up every month in my bank account, right? So that's why we did that. In Hawaii, it's hard to get 4%. I mean, 3-4%, that's pretty good on a return. 5% is not unheard of today. What we're commonly seeing, though, is 1 to 2%. Now, we have clients that we help buy in other states as well. So if you're the type that you want cash flow, we can help you. I mean, we've got, what is it, Kevin, like 10% returns, right? Some states, right? We're doing 10% returns, and was it Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky? Yeah. Alabama, right? All of these properties, I mean, you can buy a house for $100,000 and make what, $1,400 a month. It's kind of crazy, right? Here, you got to spend $400,000 to get $1,400 a month. So it just depends on your risk tolerance, right? If you want to do that, we can help you with that. We do that a lot. So that's a 1031 exchange, right? We had a lady that sold a house in Wahiawa, and it was like $800,000. And when I was talking to her, she said, I want to sell it because I need more cash flow. So what happened is we sold an $800,000 place, right? She bought, gosh, how many did she buy? She bought 8 properties in Tennessee, $100,000 each. And she made $1,000 each. And she said, the reason I'm doing this, Dan, is because my husband has cancer, and I don't have insurance, and it's expensive. So we found a way to generate more money for her, right? That mattered to her, cash flow. So a lot of people, you're going to decide, you either want cash flow or capital appreciation. Everybody wants both. It's hard to get both, right? You're usually going to pick one or the other, right? Or a balance or hybrid between the two. So the DST, you must be an accredited investor. And that really depends. I think it's what, $2 million in net worth, and was it 200,000, 250 income a year to be an accredited investor. Most people are approved based on their home values. Yeah. And the IRS approves it through a 1031 exchange. There's no management headaches, right? And you're nearly getting about 4%. It's a little under 4% now, but it's pretty close, right? And there's no hassles and no loan required. So what are the benefits of the 1031 exchange? You get to defer your capital gains taxes. That's huge. That's just money that you didn't throw away. Right? It avoids long-term capital gains at 11%, and then up to 20% for the federal government. That's significant. 1/3 of all your gain could be paying the government, right, if you don't execute a 1031 exchange on an investment property. You have to apply all your proceeds to the replacement property. So you can take your money out. Let's say you sold $1 million asset, you only wanted to buy 800,000. You could do that, but just know you're going to pay that percentage on the $200,000 that you took out. We call that the boot, right? Anytime you touch money, you're going to be paying capital gains taxes at this rate. You can do that. It's up to you. Many people want to avoid that. You can involve multiple properties. You can sell 1 and buy 4. You can sell 4 and buy 1. We actually, the most complicated one we had is we actually sold 5 properties in 4 states all at once to buy 1 property. Don't do that, please. I used to have more hair. Yeah, it's stressful because the timing, right, matters from the first sale. If you're bundling, it all starts in the first one. And if you don't time it well, it can be pretty stressful. Right? It allows you some diversity, and or consolidation, right? You can spread it out. We have some clients that want diversity. They're younger. They want in more different states, right, wherever their kids are. And then the others are saying, well, no, all my kids are at home. I'm going to sell all the stuff on the mainland and bring it back home, right? So you can do those things. You can do those things. And we've done it all, diversity and consolidation. Then it's a great estate planning tool as well. So is it a good time to do a 1031 exchange? Well, yes, if you have significant equity on the property. Many of our clients bought the property for $25,000 and it's now worth over $1 million. That's common today. I mean, most of our older clients, that's what it looks like. They got tons of equity. It's paid off for a while. The other thing is they want to upgrade or increase their portfolio. Some of them have properties that have deferred maintenance. Some of them just in a bad location or a bad area, right? Want to relocate the asset maybe from one area to another or one state to another, right? You could do that. If you want to help out your family with real estate, and we're going to talk later on how we can do that, but know that you can actually help your family today before you're gone, and you can create a plan. If you want to create a plan to create a legacy, and then you can actually pull cash out of an investment property and then do a 1031 exchange into a thing called a Delaware statutory trust. There's lots of ways to gain money out of your real estate. Free, tax-free. So why should you have a plan? Question is, have you ever heard of a family who fought over real estate after mom and dad died? And that happens all the time. And that's why more people are starting to get the value of what we do, the planning, because they know that they've heard family members or relatives or people that they know from church or what have you, that their families don't get along anymore because of money, because there was no plan, and it's common. Family feud prevention plan. That's really interesting, right? What realtor talks about that? Well, I ended up becoming a counselor over the years because people have different approaches to things, right? So what we want to do is first understand the family dynamics, right? Anytime I meet an older adult, my question is, talk to me about your children. Who's the oldest? What's his name? Does he have kids? Where does he live? What kind of job does he have? Talk to me about the second one. How do they get along? Right? Because at the end of the day, guys, that's important because you're going to be gone, remember? And you're going to need somebody to help you plan this so that hopefully you don't have a family dispute. Right? Understand the needs of the family. Some children are better well off than others. Some need more help than others, right? The other thing is important is to understand your trust document. Most of us, we get a trust when we're younger. And by the way, so just a little tip on trust. Trust is a protective bucket for you, right? It protects you. It also is an instruction manual for your heirs upon your death. It's an inheritance plan. It tells everybody who gets what. Well, if you have a piece of property that you buy, but you never put it in the trust, even though you have a trust, it's not protected. If your asset is not in the trust and you pass away, it's going to probate. Probate, the easiest route is 3 to 6 months and $10,000 to $20,000. That's the cheapest route. A contested probate, meaning there's kids that don't agree, or there's somebody comes out of the woodwork that says, hey, I was, we've heard of these things, right? Yeah, that's kind of messed up. That's a contentious probate. Those could take years or never get filed and completed. It could be that bad. Yeah. And the families could spend all their money for the attorneys to get through it. The worst part about probate is your life is completely public. Everything you own and everything you owe, everybody in the world can know. That's the worst part. So just be mindful. If you own real estate, my suggestion is you go back and make sure that everything's in a trust. And make sure you've seen your trust, right? And make sure that your trustee, your successor trustee, is trained to do what you need them to do when they're going to need to do it. See, because what typically happens is we build a trust and we pick the most responsible child as a trustee. Have they ever been trained? No. They have no bloody clue what to do. And you're gone. Yeah. That's why we started a class called I'm a Trustee, Now What? Because we help people go through this process. We know what you're going to need to do, right? And that's why we educate in those areas. And we educate the next generation. I'm not an attorney. I am not an attorney, but I've looked at so many thousands of trust documents. I talked to hundreds of trust attorneys. and I kind of understand what's going on, right? So yeah, just understanding the trust document is important. And then create a plan to pass on wealth, because really, at the end of the day, you want to create a legacy. You want that assets passed on, right? But you want to do it without any taxes. You want to minimize capital gains taxes and alleviate any property burdens. What we're finding today is the mature generation that retired is getting older, and now they're thinking about, you know, when we're gone, what's going to happen, right? The biggest problem with the investment properties is a psychological problem. And the reason why I say that is there's two problems they have. Is one is the property has some deferred maintenance, and it's like, oh shucks, I got to fix this and do that. That's the easy part. That's what you can see. What you can't see is what's in their head is, oh my gosh, my kids are not trained to do this. Oh my gosh, they have no idea how to manage this. Oh my gosh, what if they fight? Oh my gosh. And so this cognitive burden is what's getting people to get off the bench and say, maybe I do need a plan. Maybe there's a better way to do this so that my kids, at the end of the day, they're going to love each other. And I'm going to make sure that happens, because everything's going to be fair in their eyes, right? And minimizing family disputes. We believe in the power of curiosity over judgment, and that a guided self-discovery can instill forward movement. And so when we meet our clients, we ask a lot of questions, mainly because we have to understand what matters to you, because it has nothing to do with our plan. This is not our plan, it's your plan. Okay? But in order to help you create your plan, we have to understand what's important, what your ultimate goals are. Right? So here's a way to create and transfer wealth. Let's say mom's a widow. Mom has a $1 million investment property, right? At this point in the game, you know, everyone loves each other. George, Lucy, Grant, and Ann. You know, George is single, and Lucy, Grant, and Ann have some kids, right? And everything's great, right? Thanksgiving, they go over to dinner, and Christmas, they go, everything's great, right? Everything's great. But mom says, you know, I went to this class and I said, you know, I don't want you guys to worry about the property. I want to bless you today. I want to allow you to create an inheritance plan while I'm alive. How do you do that? You sell the $1 million asset and you buy 4 other assets. The good part about this, and the reason why people are doing this today, is George, Lucy, Grant, and Ann get to select them. They get to select them where they want them, because they don't want that old apartment building in Mo'iliili that has no value to them. Where do they want it? In Mililani, where Ann's family is, or in Las Vegas, where Grant is, or in New York City, where George is. You see what I'm saying? Where do they want their properties? Where they live. They don't want it where you live. And most of the time, the kids are not in the same community. They live in different parts of the country, the state, county. And that's why people are starting to do this, because they don't want to have a fight when they're gone. And the property is sitting there. My first question to them is, you know, this property, do you need the money from it? If the answer is yes, then buy something that can generate as much money or more. If you don't need the money for it, why are you holding on to it? Right. So they sell it. They buy 4 properties. George, Lucy, Grant, and Ann, they could actually live in those properties. Their kids could actually live in those properties. Why? Because mom doesn't live there. Mom owns it. We just had a situation where we had to help the family. She sold a kind of dilapidated home for like $700,000, right? It was in bad shape. Instead of fixing it up, they said, so grandma sold it. The kids were financially stable. They didn't need the money. The granddaughter, good kid. Everybody loved her, right? She became a nurse. She worked hard. She went through school. She became a nurse. She has a good job. She has good credit. What does she not have? A down payment. So grandma sold her property, did a 1031 exchange, gave the granddaughter $700,000 for a down payment. The granddaughter takes a mortgage out for $200,000, which was doable for her. She now has a condo at $900,000 that she could never, ever have without grandma's help. Grandma could bless her Now, grandma still owns it. Keep in mind, it's still in her name. 7/9 interest in that property. Right? But when she goes, the granddaughter gets it tax-free. That's how you create generational wealth, by not paying taxes. How you create a legacy with your properties while you're alive? You can do a 1031 exchange and bless your family. If you have the means to do it, we're helping people change lives today by doing this today. Because at the end of the day, you can't take your money with you. You can't take it. Make sure you have enough for the rest of your life. But if you know you have enough, then money is good for the good it does. What do you want to do with it? Right? What could you do with it? We just create opportunities for folks. When mom passes away, the properties go straight to these kids, tax-free. Because it says in the trust, 123 Main Street goes to George, the next one goes to Lucy, and everybody gets it tax-free. Tax-free. Meanwhile, they've enjoyed it for a number of years, right? So they get the best of both worlds. Well, actually, there's three things that happen. Good. One is mom doesn't have a burden with the property anymore. Mom doesn't have any capital gains taxes, and mom could bless her kids when she wanted to. Last is she got to enjoy and receive the gratitude and appreciation from her own family. Our goal is to keep families together, right? To keep them tight, to bless them when you can. And for those of you who have built wealth in real estate, these are opportunities that we can help with. So 10 things to make sound decisions. Number one, understand a current market analysis. Really, you want to understand the market at the moment. Make sure you understand the interest rate chart. Having an understanding of your equity and how much money you're going to have at the end is really important. Tax liability assessment, huge, huge. Please don't ever sell something without knowing what that is. And that's one of the things that we always do prior to selling a house, because you need to know. Okay. We'll do an asset performance test to understand how your investment property is generating money for you, what it's doing. I gotta tell you, 90% of the time, they're underperforming. Almost all the time, we show people how we make them more money. Almost always. There's only less than 10% of the time that they're doing well. Renovation and repair, if that's something that you need help with, absolutely can help with bringing clarity around that. Creating generational wealth. Understanding the compounding principle, really important to making sound decisions for you in the next generation. And then the family feud prevention plan. All of these things would help you create a real estate plan before it's too late. You want to make these plans while you can, before something happens to you where then you can't make these decisions, and then no decisions are made. So this real estate planner, we think like a consultant, we act like a shepherd, and we focus all of the activities on the needs of the family as it builds and transfers generational wealth. This is what we do for our clients. We don't sound like a realtor. We are. We've been doing this a long time. We're one of the top in the industry, as you know. But we've taken it to a whole nother level of how do we impact our community in a way that it has a generational impact, that you can have a generational impact, right? And we will guide you through that process. And that's the end of our presentation.